Hello and welcome to The Inquisitive Crafter. I'm Katrina Stewart from Crafty Jacks, and today I'm sharing with you some of my very recent makes. So while I was in Scotland, Eric did most of the driving, and so I needed something small that was easily put down because, let me tell you, driving on the other side of the road is a little bit stressful. And so I decided to take with me a bunch of scraps and knit a bunch of tiny hearts. So I literally have a basket full of them. These have been washed and blocked. They just need to be stuffed, and then the ends need to be stitched together. So there's openings, which is why they've got all these little dangly bits on them. But yeah, as you can see, I've knit lots of them. They've got several different sizes. So there's smaller ones, and then there's bigger ones. I think the pattern itself has 7 different sizes, and so there's an assortment of those sizes in amongst this treasure trove of hearts. The pattern is Palpitation by Hunter Hammerson, and I think I think her company name is Knit Tiny Nonsense or something like that, because she has all of these wonderful patterns that are little tiny things that you sort of look at and go, why am I knitting it? And honestly, you're knitting it for the pure joy of it. So I have a plan for all of these hearts that I'm knitting, and they will be with me in our booth at Knit City, and they will be available by donation. And what that is going to do is that's going to support our Giving Back program. So if you're new to us and you haven't heard about our Giving Back program, we have 3 charities that we support locally. There's the CKNW Kids Fund, there's the West Coast Kids Cancer Foundation, and there is the Forward Foundation. And there's a little bit about all of these charities on our website, and so you can read about them there. And the money raised from the donations that we receive from these hearts will be going directly to those charities. So 100% of those donations will go forward to those charities. And to date, in the last 3 years, we've raised about $3,000 for these respective charities, which is not a lot in the grand scheme of things, but it's a lot for us. So we're hoping to keep raising more each and every year. So that's kind of fun. And then next are these 2 scarves. So they literally came off my loom this morning because this one is a teacher's gift. So these were woven with our Divine Lace, which is a 100% honey tussa silk. So the honey tussa silk hasn't been bleached after. The tussa silk has a natural sort of honey color to it, and it hasn't been bleached after that. So these have been woven. I wove it at 20 ends per inch. I definitely made some mistakes with this this project. In winding my warp, I made a couple of mistakes. So there was definitely some challenges when I went along. So I had wanted to wind my warp with 2 ends, and so not thinking about it, I took the end from the inside and the outside of the cake for a part of it. And what that created was, over time, the silk started wrapping around itself, and so it was creating problems within the warp, and things were getting stuck and wrapped up around each other, and so I had to constantly pull the back end of the warp apart, and I ended up with a couple of broken warp threads. But I got lots of practice repairing broken warp threads, and you can't tell by looking at the project that there were broken warp threads in there, so that's kind of delightful. The 4 colors that I used were Starless Night, Blush, Louise's Jam, and Chameleon, and I just used them randomly in the weft, and then I had the stripes in the warp. And I'm really quite delighted with how these turned out. So I wove them at 20 ends per inch, and they were 12 inches wide, and finished there about 10.5 inches wide. So there was a little bit of drawing off the loom, and they have lovely drape. To finish them, I soaked them in hot water, and then I gave them a rinse and added a little bit of vinegar to the water. It was just something that I'd read on the internet, and I haven't done full research into it, but apparently silk likes more of an acidic environment. And then I gave it a final rinse. Then I put it in my washer and just spun out the extra water. And then I took the mostly mostly dry scarf and beat it against a soft surface. And then I gave it a steam with the iron once it was dry. And this is the result. So I did do a twisted fringe, which is a lot of fun. Each of my hem stitching bundles were 4 ends in each of those bundles, and so there's 2 of those bundles plied together with the twisted fringe. So that was scarf number 1, and this is scarf number 2. And so again, I didn't follow a pattern with respect to the weft. I just sort of wove a color until I felt like moving on, and then I changed the color. Sometimes I would do one pick of one color and one pick of another color, which I really like the way that that shows up in the cloth. It just gives it a little bit more detail. And so yeah, this is the second one, and they're nice and long, so they're able to be looped through and put on like this. And the one thing that I have to say is, we often think of silk as a cooler fabric, but silk actually does have thermal properties similar to wool. It's not quite as warm as wool, but it does have thermal properties similar to wool. And so silk can actually be quite warm, which is why it makes great scarves. And so I haven't weighed them to see how much yarn, because I'd made some misjudgments in my warp calculations. So I ended up using a little bit more warp than I probably needed. And so these 2 projects can easily be done with 4 skeins of yarn. And so that's 2 scarves for 4 skeins of yarn, which isn't bad. So yeah, that is what is fresh off the loom and fresh off the needles here. And that's it for today. So thank you so much for joining me. If you have questions you would like me to answer in a future video, please send them to ask@craftyjacks.ca, and I will do my very best to do that for you. And until next time, have a wonderful day. Bye for now.